I do all this stuff for myself.
On.
Okay.
On.
If we're gonna.
Uh-oh, I lost music.
I just muted myself out. I will, and I'm making myself a list of notes here. I will make sure that the hold always has its own music track that you'll never have to turn on or off.
Oh, so it turns off automatically when you start, when one of us starts talking.
No, it's not. It's not set to duck, but
it does. It is stopping though when we're talking, or is it not stopping for you, dear? The music, does it keep playing all the time? You don't hear any music? I don't know why she doesn't hear music. Okay, but too late for that. Okay, so we are a go. Let's see, hold on here. I'm going to fire up Mixer.
Okay.
We are live. The 4-hour countdown's a little off.
Oh, it might be a little bit off.
That's okay.
Whenever we're ready to go, she knows she hits 15 and we go.
Okay, she's going to do that in 1 minute and 7 seconds. Awesome. Not that everybody can't hear us anyway.
It's true. Hello, friends.
I think when you hit the button, it goes, right?
No, it's previews.
Oh, it previews. Okay. Yes, you can preview it.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this CVR World Cup League spring season started. This is the first race of the season in Zone G, and I'm Chris Haskell, joined by Frank Garcia. How you doing, Frank?
Really good. How are you doing, Chris?
Yeah, pretty dang good. This is so cool. Right off of CVR World Cup LA, the major, we're about to find out who the next group of amazing athletes are going to be. There is going to be somebody who's probably racing today who's going to qualify for the next event. And they're going to do that over the 8 weeks of this season. And this is week number 1. Now, they can put 6 races in the book, the points in the book, up to 6. So maybe they take the day off today, but probably not. I would bet you that a contender like an Adam Boyko, like a Corey Brown, or one of these other riders that's in here is going to be able to do what needs to be done to get to that major. But where is it, Frank? Where's that thing happening?
That is happening in Vancouver, Canada.
Wow. Not Vancouver, Washington. That is a big upgrade from what I thought it was. Vancouver, Canada will be amazing. And of course, there's another amazing venue picked out. We'll give you more on that in just a little bit. But with 3.5 minutes to go, we want to talk a little bit about the course, which I had a chance to ride today. Now, you are recovering from sickness, so you are off the hook, Mr. Garcia. But for many other folks who participated today. They already know what this thing is all about, and we are starting to see the pen fill up. I imagine we're going to see it really increase here in a little bit. But let's talk about the course today, which is Volcano Flat, right? Volcano Flat. Am I missing a word there? No, I'm not.
No, it's a flat course, but sort of a long, big loop versus sort of the tiny crit loops. So just a road race that's flat.
A road race that's flat. Now, I wrote it earlier today, and I was happy that it was flat, but I found myself kind of in a different spot than maybe the last time I raced seriously. Hey, this is day number 2 back for me. But for many of these folks, they didn't even hardly take a break. Now, there are a few big names in this group, and I'll start them with Zakharov, right? Nate Kleckner is in this group as well. There's a Weiss in there as well. We'll talk about him a little bit later, but also Adam Boyko from Team ODZ, who had a great season last time. As you look at folks start to come into this group, are there any other names that we should be paying close attention to?
Not that other than Scotty, that should be an interesting day. We've got Big E Sorensen in, it looks like. You know, he'll play well. You know, he'll be in the mix. Looks like we got Dion out as well from Cannondale 4i, so that should be interesting as well.
It should. Now, they're not talking to each other very much in this group. Now, this is about 23 miles, these 3 laps, and it'll start out pretty hot and pretty flat. Now, there is a little bit of climbing at the beginning, which can separate some folks. If you were to pick a handful of folks you would imagine make this kind of opening move, may even get separated from the group, who can you count on being there?
Well, you're going to count on Scotty being there. Scotty Weiss will probably make the move happen. And then it'll be people trying to hold his wheel for the move and not get dropped off the back. So that's what I would expect to see.
Yeah, he does. I think he does more animation than Pixar at this point. I also see Neil Reagan in the group, who is the gentleman I've talked about a few times before. This will be interesting to see if we have a few of the Team Poland folks show up. They had talked about this as being a possible early morning race for them. And it would have to be darn early. My goodness, what would that be, 3 a.m.? Maybe you can talk about this in just a minute. We'll go in about 20 seconds, but I'm interested to know just the movement across zones, how people have somehow migrated this season. You've had a firsthand view of what that's, but we'll touch on that subject in a minute. What I think we should do is we should watch this thing explode, and it's about to. All pens come together when the gate drops into one big amalgamation, and you can get lost like a little kid at the mall. And here they go. My goodness, I'm not surprised to see orange numbers coming out of the top here. Hunter, Scotty Weiss, maybe not orange. Well, there they are. Orange, big numbers right there for him. That means he is going hard. And as this kind of collection moves down the pier, we've got the perfect angle to see all of the goes, right, that are coming out of these pens. Enjoy your ride is what it says. I don't know that any of those guys up front are really enjoying their ride. Maybe some are, probably not. This ride will kick off really fast, as it has in this spot here, and then they populate right there, and we'll be able to jump up to one of the other riders, maybe a Big E Sorensen, maybe a Adam Boyko. Now, Sorensen was the guy who won this one last time. He managed to get himself to the final, right? To the final in Los Angeles, which was amazing to see and surprised some folks with what he was able to do on the opening day in the qualifier. But here in this race, there are other people who won his spot and frankly may have the opportunity to get there, including Adam Boyko. In just a moment, we'll climb up the row. There we go, just a little bit, and see who is in there. Nice big collection there. Neil Reagan sitting comfortably in the middle of that group. Corey Brown, as we mentioned just a little bit ago. Big E, that's your Eric Sorensen in the group, and of course Scotty Weiss, who sits wherever Scotty Weiss decides to sit, frankly. A few jerseys of note here, and a couple of kind of just standard jerseys in this group. We see ODZ. We see, well, a couple of other folks, non-affiliated folks, but we see some names as well. I don't see a lot of teams coming out here, which is interesting because we did just see a number of teams in the postseason. But when you think about teams, who's in your, I guess, royal family of teams? Teams have been around a while or have a lot of really good talent, men or women, it doesn't matter.
Well, right off the top of the head, you've got Team X, you've got Team Vision, you've got Team ODZ out there. You have KRT trying to do more and more all the time. Team Poland did an excellent show in the postseason. Team PTZ also. You've got Team Fearless, and then you've got Team Vixen, Fearless and Vixen on the ladies' side. But what you tend to see in the regular season is every bike racer out for himself, and so you tend to see a little bit less teamwork, or quite a bit less teamwork in the regular season than you do in the postseason.
I wonder if that's going to change as riders find themselves in good positions near the top of their standings and may start to solicit more help from those who, while strong, are possibly not going to be in a position to contend for much more than, say, a 10th or a 7th place, but might be able to help their rider win outright. We saw a little bit of that at Team ODZ, who is very interested in claiming the C bracket, the C zone this year, maybe throwing their flag in it and calling it home. We'll see how that goes for them. Great race today. Justin Wagner, though, coming in second in that race. We'll give you a rundown of the races that have already taken place today and some of the finals here in just a moment. So, Frank, quick question for you. As we look at the course here, it's raining. They're coming out of the Caldera to find this tricky weather. Is this going to have any impact? Is this weather psychological or otherwise on these riders?
Interestingly, I think it does bug some of the riders a little bit, but it tends to clear. Weather tends to change on Watopia fairly quickly.
Yes.
So as you can see here, we can see a number of the riders and the Tron bikes through the muck there, but generally, yeah, I think it does because they don't like it outside. As a rider, I used to love the rain, mostly because everybody else hated it, and that gave me a little bit of an advantage. But so I think that's where it comes from. You're in a virtual world; it still has a psychological impact.
It does, and I also think it has a little bit of a visibility impact. We're on board here with Neil Reagan, J.O., and then we do have one rider who's trailing behind just a little bit here. We'll jump in if this group splits and be able to give you that multi-view, again, just to let you know where folks are on course. At this point, no telemetry like we saw in L.A., but we will be able to give you positioning on course. Everyone really just kind of settling in and behaving at this point. These are pretty decent watts for a lot of these riders. I would be uncomfortable if I were here right now, but they seem to be hanging in. Neil Reagan, heart rate in a really nice spot considering he's holding about 4 watts per kilo there. That is good to see. Every rider eligible today is going to have to put on a heart rate monitor and have a system that produces power, not just perceived or calculated power, Z power specifically, which is one of the options to be able to ride on the island, but it is not an option to be able to race. No Z power allowed. And maybe you can help the first timer understand maybe why that is a stipulation, why that's a rule, Frank?
Fairly straightforward. Since we're virtual, we request more attributes of telemetry than you might otherwise expect. So we demand a heart rate monitor. Demand was probably a strong word, but probably accurate in that if you're going to race in the league, you have to wear a heart rate monitor. We have to be able to see that. And Z power is known not to be particularly accurate. It's an approximation of power. And while that might work fine for just riding around Watopia, if you're competing with someone, it requires a little bit more accuracy, obviously, so that we have an even playing field.
Yes, that makes sense. And it's something, Z-Power is something that can be conceivably manipulated, isn't it?
It is. It's a speed sensor. It's easily manipulated. It tends not to be that accurate at anywhere in the power band, but especially as you start to go up higher in the power bands, you see, we have an attack here, but you see,
yes,
mentioning an attack, as you see this attack, what this would do is exaggerate that attack. And so instead of 9.7 watts per kilogram, he might be generating 12 or 13 watts per kilogram. And that would really change things up, quite a bit and make it unfair.
He attacked on the right spot of the hill there. He decided he was going to get up when it started to go up and was able to kind of break this apart a little bit. Most of the big folks, the folks you'd expect to be there, are where they need to be. It's still early in the race. It's still pretty fresh, but maybe they're tired of a group ride, wanted to just kick this up. Neil Reagan in the red jersey right there. Pink wheels, go, my man. He decides he's going to try to close this gap. Now, guys will get right on his wheel, make sure that that they use him to help close that gap. And it starts to come back together. He'll climb up a little bit. Who is off the front? No, it was Moan, but they're all back together right now. Scotty Weiss in the rainbow stripes there, or Weiss rather, just marking any of those moves at this point. He's well known for kind of going off the front, but sitting in a little bit more today. Eric Sorensen from Team Draft is the gentleman we have mentioned a couple of times before. Finds himself right where he needs to be. They're going to make a big right-hander, and then they're going to head down this gradual decline back to, well, the ocean layer. They'll come across in a moment here. Hopefully the clouds will part just enough so that you can see it, but you'll be able to recognize the marina. There's lots of boats and pelicans and seagulls and all manner of flora and fauna down near there, but the flatness of it is what is going to be, I guess, comforting to some of these riders. The aerodynamic advantage on a first week of CVR World Cup League is nice, if especially you're up against some folks who maybe have been training a little bit more consistency in the playoff gap than you have. So it's a little bit more survivable in that sense. The flat tends to be a little bit more survivable, not a lot of uphill where you can get blown out. But I would expect these riders to continue to animate as they have previously. And we'll see. So behind there in this next chase group, we've got Allison Kubota. We know her very well. A couple of other names that you recognize too. Rogers, the fearless rider. Mackenzie, who was there also. Oh, and Katie Pothier. That's great to see her as well. Lots of Holly Gable in this group as well, but chasing behind. They rolled out just about a minute later, if I remember correctly. They're just a little bit further behind in the time clock, which you can tell. We'll stay close on this group, but these ladies are doing great. Now, Allison might have something to prove here. She found herself in the second stage of the final day, the women's elite race in Los Angeles, a little bit off the back, and that little bit turned into a lot bit, and she found herself not making the move, was unable to support her teammate at the time. Stickle, who is in that group, Vixen rider. You'll see those names, the Velocity Vixens, right? You'll see Team Fear, less. That's the less sign. And of course, you'll see large, women's racing teams like PTZ, although they're co-ed, but they have a large women's contingent, and they've got Fowler, of course, and Pothier in that group. Although Fowler appears to be in the gap there, Pothier in a chase group. We'll see if they can put those things together. And Holly Gable, we would expect to have made that move. Something must have happened mid-race or mid-start that kind of blew things apart. A big attack early can tear a group apart. It'll be interesting to see if the right horses are hitched to this lead train wagon here and if they can hold it off. But 6 strong riders should be able to do that. We see also another Weiss in there. If you want to know who some of these folks are, if you want to actually follow some of these riders, here's a list of who is on the CycleView app right now. Jose Guzman, Shane Gaffney, Allison Kubota, you can watch her specifically. Julie McKenzie, Ryan Corliss, David Torriello, or Torello, excuse me. Juan Ignacio, Katie Pothier, Vivian Workman, we know that name well. Gasoline Greg, we'll talk about him in a minute, and Jenny Mattis. So Gasoline Greg, a very popular character in Los Angeles as well. So as you look around and see some of these riders in this group, I am, by the way, you can go over to cycleview.cvrworldcup.com and you can actually choose the riders that you want to see. I'm following Jose Guzman right now, and I am following Gasoline Greg. Gasoline Greg, not coming up for me. Oh, there he is. Oh, he's sitting on the side of the road. You do not want to follow Gasoline Greg. That's sad for our guy right there. So I'll jump on to Katie Pothier and able to see her view of this race. Right, she is on her bike. You get a camera view of her. Jose Guzman, no camera on his, but Allison Kubota, who is a vision rider in that group, also in there. All right, back with the men's group, as you are already keenly aware, and they are just kind of behaving nicely. They're Guzman. That's an interesting flag. I cannot identify that. If you are watching, throw it in the chat on one of the sources, maybe Mixer. Jump in with us on Mixer.com. Hi, Mixer. How are you doing today? And see if, in fact, you have a sense of how this is going to go. Very cool. A lot of folks watching over on Mixer right now. We appreciate all of you being here. If you've got questions, or hey, if you've got answers, then throw them in there. We'd love to hear them. Okay. This is, by the way, Mixer, the hardest video game ever. But this is the CVR World Cup League. This is a group of real people, from world-class athletes all the way down to Cat 5 dentists. And they get together and they race in a virtual world from the comfort, or discomfort in this case, of their home. We're locked on to Neil Reagan in the lead group of the men's A, although there are a few others in here. Names that you should pay close attention to if you're brand new to this. You'll see over on the right side in the lineup, folks like Adam Boyko, folks like former world champion, although I'm told you're not supposed to say former. He's not currently the world champion, not holding those stripes currently, but Scotty Weiss, which you'll notice is wearing rainbow stripes, which is the mark of a world champion, and only world champions can wear those. In fact, if you show up at an in-person bike race and you're wearing something with world championship stripes on it, whether it be a hat or otherwise, they'll make you take it off. They'll get in your face. Have you ever done that, Frank? Have you ever been at one of those events and somebody rolls up wearing the stripes, and whether it's just part of some decorative thing or a hat or whatever, and they get read the riot act? Have you ever had that happen?
I have not ever been read the riot act. I have seen it happen previously.
Yeah, it happens. Fats Domino is back in. But if you're out there, if you're watching on any one of these, whether you're on the CycleView app, which is CVRWorldCup.com, you can watch any of these riders that you want. Katie Pothier is doing a really nice job on her channel. Lots of sweating. You probably could have seen our guy Ikebi do the Ikebi shuffle on there. But as you can see right here, this is what it looks like. You can pull up as many as 4 streams. You can view live race results. You can see these riders doing their thing, and you can select which riders you want. Okay. Neil Reagan trolling the front here. This is a rider that I know and ride with in real life. I'd like to say he's a really decent guy, but the guy kicks my butt too much. So frankly, Neil, you can go have a cold slice of pizza for all I care. But Scotty Weiss in there as well. Expect him to blow up a little bit, and there it goes. A little bit of a dig off the front. You see guys moving. This was a blob. It's about to become a line as somebody goes hard on the front, and as guys get a little bit faster, they're going to string way out. There they are. Corliss on the front. Zakharov also on the front. He is a well-known rider in this G zone. Okay, so Scotty is now on the front. He's just going to be called Scotty from now on. There you go, the World Championship stripes I mentioned just a little bit ago. He's going to animate this. They have completed 1 full lap here. 16.5 minutes is the projected finish time on this first of 3 laps. Will it stick and stay this pace? I don't think so. I think the laps are only going to get faster from here on out. But you can get a relative understanding of how fast they've been going by the number of names in just a moment as they come under this banner will be covered with confetti. That's a PR on this lap, and it may not happen for this specific. It did not. This is not one of the Jersey laps or the KOM lap type. So we don't tend to see those. Dang, you were going to see some fireworks and excitement, but maybe not today. There doesn't appear to be many folks who have been trimmed off this group. It's still a very large group, and folks are starting to work a little bit harder. You see Scotty Weiss there over on the left side, his heart rate. That's the black numbers. It says BPM. RPM, that's revolutions per minute. Those are how fast his feet are going around the pedals. It's a nice indication of overall effort and comfort, especially on a climb. And then the watts is how much power he is putting out. That's a lot. Frank, do you remember the calculation on how many watts on a bike is 1 horsepower?
I do not. It sounds like a very interesting calculation.
It is, and of course the interwebs will tell me I'm wrong, but I believe it's about 750 watts equals 1 horsepower, and that just shows you how strong a horsepower can be. Again, people will tell me if I'm wrong, but that was something that was communicated to me by Hunter Allen in Los Angeles. So. As we look at these events, you can always go over to CycleView and click on the live results tab and see what's going on in this race. Now, one of the nice things about that is it gives you the chance to be able to focus very specifically on. There we go. Allison, we can hear her audio, but it allows you to go very specifically on the group that is racing currently, and you can see the max points available to them and how it will impact their overall standing. At this point, first race, everyone is eligible for that #1 position. Anyone can take top points here. Alexei Zakharov in that group, Patrick Hogan, Shane Gaffney, who I mentioned just a little bit ago, Ryan Corliss, and you'll see that their overall and average watts are displayed at any time on that course. Now, that data is being brought through the internet by Cycle Data, which is a CVR property, which helps kind of bring those in so we get a sense of it. What'll be really nice as we get closer to the end here, we'll be able to see how those kind of results lay out. Now, we're coming around to the volcano here again. Last time it was raining. We didn't talk much about how rain can change visibility and create an illusion that there's actually no gap in the group when there actually is a gap. We talk about the benefit of rain. Rain actually makes it really nice for attacking, especially the heavy rain. It allows you to maybe escape when other people are not watching very closely. Now, you can always, of course, look on the right side there. Okay, Frank, question for you. And I know in a moment here, we're going to hop back over to the women's race. We're very interested in seeing it, but you can watch that race. From the point of view of the women who are racing over on CycleView, CVRWorldCup.com, CycleView.CVRWorldCup.com. You can check that out. But Alison Kubota has a nice little cadre of riders here in her position. They have dropped a couple. Rogers, Gannon, and Katie Pothier have all retreated off the back of this group. Kubota has put together a group of 4. That group of 4 is making turns to try to get away from the group, but there is a larger group chasing behind them. Unfortunately, about a minute behind. Allison, Dr. Kubota, is able to put out a bunch of power, right? And she is one of those folks that hangs very nicely in that time trial kind of position. Now, she's not on a time trial bike. She's on the Zwift Experimental. You know, this is Zwift Experimental, the Tron bike, if it's got a glowing wheel and top tube and down tube or seat tube and all that stuff. So in this group, is there anybody else who jumps out at you that makes you think trouble? Allison's in trouble here. Rhonda Stickle, of course, in that group.
I think Katrina. Yeah, I think Katrina in the sprint. So if she's able to sort of ride the wheels until the end, then she's going to have an awesome chance in the sprint. Katrina can usually light it up. Some days less than others, and that would indicate to me that some days she's been stressed along the way. So if I was the other three in this break, I would be looking to sort of repeatedly attack and make Katrina work all the way to the end. Otherwise, she might have the sprint leg. So that's normally the way that you deal with a sprinter in your group. You try and get rid of them or make them do a lot of work that they wouldn't otherwise have to perform if they're just riding your wheel.
Absolutely. If you've got a friend who eats all your food, you don't invite him over after school when you've only got one thing of chips. You just don't, right? You do not want to contend with somebody who has a special ability, and she's a special in that sense, right? She's a really, really strong sprinter. Allison can do her work too, but she's really a sustained power. She's a very tall athlete. I think she's just under 6 feet. Do you remember that? I mean, I've stood next to her and thought, oh, she's as tall as I am, or maybe a little bit taller. But that, yeah, go ahead.
I don't remember that off the top of my head, but I'll see if I can check that out.
You know, I'm pretty sure we have a graphic which kind of gives a few of her details. If we have that in the rider cards, that'd be great to bring up. I don't remember if that's here and ready for us in our assets, but if it isn't, that's fine too. But she's in a nice little group here. I don't know nearly as much about Stephanie Ossenbrink, but I think that's a name that we're going to know well. If she's hanging with these folks up here, with Weiss and of course Allison Kubota, who we just mentioned, Rhonda Stickle and Stephanie Ossenbrink are in pretty good company here. They've held the right move. I'm surprised at the strength behind them. Now over a minute behind Julie McKenzie, Katie Pothier. Those are folks who were in Los Angeles competing well in the CVR World Cup Major, which happened just 10 days ago. That's pretty impressive there. Okay. So they're pretty well settled in this group. Very interested to see what's happening on the men's side, because I think that there's going to be a little bit of excitement that happens here. They're not going to want to take that big, huge group around. But as we discussed a little bit earlier, a flat like this is going to make it a little bit harder for folks to just get away. On a hill, you can attack, you can create a gap, you can maybe break someone's will. But on a flat, you just can't get the velocity, the escape velocity necessary to be able to do that. Now, all right, big push on the front. Scotty Weiss doing over 10 watts per kilo. Oh, if you don't know, thank you, Tobin. Tobin hates me. I appreciate that. For that, we'll come back to her height in a moment. And this is, wow, this is super exciting. So Scotty Weiss, the former, we'll just call him a world champion. He's got the rainbow stripes. It was a few years ago, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. He is chasing hard here. Now, Moen from Iowa, also in that group. We'll give you some first names here in just a minute. Everyone likes to have their name called. And we find that they are just breaking this off a group. Now, who didn't make the cut? Frichet didn't make it. Tomafalu, Neil Reagan is a couple seconds behind this group. I did not expect to see that. Neil, oh, how embarrassing. Okay, he's going to pull himself back. Dang it. I can mock him as much as I wanted to, but that little attack broke it into two groups. These are strong riders. These are strong A riders. They kind of surge and flood to the front, not because they want to be there, but because they had velocity when they rejoined the group. Imagine, if you will, the space shuttle. I guess there aren't those anymore, but SpaceX rocket launching a payload to the International Space Station. The International Space Station is hopping. But if you come by the International Space Station a little bit too quick, there can be some problems. Okay, everybody back in this group. Nobody panic, but this is going to wear some folks out. Now, you can see Ryan Corliss, who is in this group, chasing pretty hard. He's in there with Eric Sorensen and some of these others. In the other, you see Katie Pothier. You can bring these up, cycleview.com. You can watch any of the riders that you want to see the hard work that they're doing. Now, Katie seems to have lost her view. That can happen sometimes. You're dealing with OBS. If you're not an OBS superstar like Fats Domino, right? You don't necessarily want to keep messing with that if it doesn't work when you got to get on the bike. The race is the most important. She got her camera working. She got her overlay working. So that's a start. I'm not sure how that'll be judged, probably favorably, but I'm not a judge. So Julie McKenzie also, excuse me. Yes. Also in this group behind. They're about a minute behind, but it looks like they're starting to pull some time back on this group. That would be really nice to see. We'd like a tighter race in the women. So, if you're listening, Katie, lead the charge, pull them back, take Heather White with you, take Amy Fowler with you. Holly Gable's not far back there. Grab her as well, Amy Gannon, and pull them up. These are real riders, ladies and gentlemen, in real places on real bikes, the hardest video game ever. HPP. You down with HPP, Tobin? But a lot of folks cheering on the riders here. Allison got a fan group here. She is 5'9". I may be 5'9" right now. I used to be a little bit taller, but all this heavy weightlifting, I'm such so buff right now that I can't do that. It just makes me shorter from all the weights. Yeah, yeah, you know me, down with HPP. So I appreciate you. Thank you for jumping back into the 80s to make that reference happen. And those of you who don't know it, naughty by nature, you'll understand. Ask your parents first. So the race as it's shaping up here, we had just a little bit of a push in the men's group. There doesn't appear to be as much, but we've got this nice group of riders who are behaving pretty well at this point. Although 3.2 watts per kilo, they're moving and they're working hard. But back in the men's group, you've got Scotty, heart rate a little bit more under control now at 165 beats per minute. But it's starting to be, kind of attack after attack. They have completed 2 laps here, or excuse me, they are on the close of their second lap, 28 minutes in. If you remember, we finished at about 16 and a half minutes. We'll see how this one holds up. You can, of course, check out these different riders. As I look on CycleView at Ryan Corliss, I see where he is on the course. I see the overall time that he's put in. I also see some of the heart rate data that he's been putting out visible on the bottom. If you hit your G button on Zwift, it'll allow you to get that heart rate data on screen, and power data. So heart rate is the line that continues all the way across there. We're seeing the way Ryan is transmitting it here. He's got his own version of the interface there, and he's streaming it, and you can too. These riders get an extra 5 points when they stream these races, which is nice. It adds up over time. It gives you an edge. So thank you. Lots of great stuff happening. Yeah, it's totally insane. Okay. As we move into this lap, that interesting time happening on the front there, we've got Scotty moving off the front. We're going to just focus on those riders immediately around him, Muir in that group. Hunter off the front a little bit here, and Neil Reagan off the front. They escaped somehow. Maybe Neil Reagan heard his name called, heard the punishment of a cold slice of pizza, and decided he was going to maybe show me what he's made of. Well, I hate to tell you, Neil Reagan, there's a big group of dudes coming, and there are some fast dudes in here. I don't know if you remember, Eric Sorensen shot laser beams out of his eyes if you look over the shoulder there, you can see those guys coming. Hunter, it's maybe not your day. Neil, it's not your day. This looks great. You get your name called. You get to wander back into the kitchen a little bit and say, hey, guess what? I got in a little breakaway. Lasted 14 seconds. But these guys are going to catch you, I do believe, unless they just decide that they're all going to pull over and put their faces against the glass and just look at the pretty fish. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. Gaffney also in this group. Now, we're starting to see some fatigue on these riders. It's starting to stretch out a little bit. Guzman already off the back of this group, unfortunately. He's a minute and a half behind now. But this group has started to cold. Big kick over the top here. This is one of those few sections of climbing. It's hard to get up and out. And if you are a light, fast rider, you can put some gaps on some guys. And it looks like Taipan is not going to be able to make that front group. He's going to get strung out a little bit. He's starting to tail gun here. Scotty decides he's going to come up and over the top. I think this is an attack, and I think it's an attack of note. I think we're going to get some guys trimmed off the back here. Hunter already starting to gap as well. He was just on the front with Neil Reagan. Now he's 2 seconds behind the leader here. Eric Sorensen just a little bit behind. Muir, Zakharov also right there in that lead group. But we're starting to see guys fade. Neil Reagan off the back at this point. Tomofuji also off the back. 5 seconds, 6 seconds. These guys are falling. You can see them when we look over the shoulder of Scotty. Those guys are in a whole different group. I'm sorry, but that's a different seating section. No longer can they sit at the big kids table. Unfortunately, they're sitting in the living room on the card table on a bucket. That is not good for these guys because the gravy and the good potatoes, you know the ones I'm talking about, the ones with butter like heavily mixed in them, those are at the grown-up table, and you guys did not get the invite. All right, the big boys, 10 seconds on this group. We'll see if there's anybody in that chase group who can recover and come back. But Frank, as you look at this, I haven't gone to you for a little while here. I apologize. It's been super exciting, and the sound of my own voice, it's magical. But you already know that. But tell us, this was a big kick by Scotty. Now they're coming around here. It looks like about the same time, maybe a little bit slower than the last lap. But they've actually gotten a separation here, and there are just a handful of riders, 7 by my count in that group. What do we believe is the big impact of this move? Can this group, who seems to be clawing back, Neil Reagan, hearing his name again, not wanting another cold slice of pizza, he decides he's going to try to come across this gap. And as he knows all too well, 5 seconds can be done. 25 seconds, that's a whole different thing. It looks like Neil's going to spend everything he's got because his race is now. His sprint for the big finish is now. If he doesn't get back in this group, there's probably very little chance. And we see the chase group right now. He's got some compatriots. What? They managed to bring a few of these guys back, but there is still wreckage behind. Gaffney in the wrong spot here. I'm sorry, my man, but you missed this. Adam Boyko significantly off the back, a couple of minutes at this point. The minutes don't matter in the league, but the time, the time doesn't matter, but the points do. Gaffney in a tough spot. Of course, we mentioned they're through it all just a moment ago. These guys are at a totally different pace. They're dejected. They know what happened. They know where it all went wrong. They'll review the video. They'll hear my stern scolding that you should have done more a little earlier. All right, coming around the corner here, you get some thumbs up. That is an indication that these guys have put down a pretty good lap here back to this point. Sprint jersey to Muir, who managed to capture it in a different part of the course. That's nice. Okay, so we've got, and I'll jump to you, Frank. Go ahead and just jump in when you've got your comms up. But Scotty, you've got Eric Sorensen. That's the Big E draft on your list there. Neil Reagan getting really close, just a couple of seconds behind. But that's a big group. If they decide to kick it right now, if somebody decides to explode, it is all over for that little chase group. We believe in you, the little chase group that could. Neil Reagan on the back there. That is a painful distance. You want Riddle, who's down with HPP. You want him to be able to close that gap for you. Or at least you're hoping he will. Corliss also in that group. HPP working together to do that. But Scotty has a different mindset entirely. Another big kick. And he animates this. He takes 5 guys with him. Look at that. That is the worst, most miserable thing. You have to know, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this on Mixer, on Facebook. Yes, that is just cruel, isn't it? Insult to injury.
It is cruel. He is absolutely trying to drop the people. They came back, but he is winning a war of attrition. We see here in the female race, Katrina off the back. Looks like the other 3 do indeed want to lose the sprinter, and it's all now about her gauging this effort, but she's got to get back on now. Heart rate's at 176 beats per minute. She may be in trouble here. This may be a goodbye to the gravy train. Watch it, wave it off into the distance. Her night might be over in terms of a podium finish, and the other three might have locked that in.
Yeah, it's very possible. Now, Austin Brink also in that group. You'll notice that her her power is starting to drop a little bit, but Weiss is not. She actually kicked it up here. When she gets onto that flat, that really favors her. It also favors Allison Kubota, who's kind of the de facto leader of this train. She's in the engine, and a lot of them just kind of sit on her wheel and let her do her thing. But she heard her name called, maybe decided she was going to prove us wrong. I think that's what she decided to do.
But if you're in this front group and they've waited a little too long, you see Allison going to the front here. You probably wanted to not let her climb back in, crush all hope. Now she gets back in, she gets a little hope, and she gets a little rest. And that can change things dramatically. But again, they are putting some hurt into the sprinter legs, and so that might be to their advantage in the end.
They can. If she exerts a little bit too much too early and may not have it at the end, that may open the door for Rhonda Stickle or for Stephanie Austin-Brink. Who knows? A lot of other great riders in this list that have not made this initial selection. They're in a large group behind Katie Pothier, Helen White. We've got Fowler even 4 minutes behind now. Amy Rogers in that group. And they're chasing, but they're not doing the work here. The only one who's maybe got a chance to catch on to that group. No, I'm not even gonna give hope there, because they're coming across kind of scattered. But at this point, early in the season, they're just looking for points, aren't they? I mean, winning this race is nice, and it gives you some nice points. But this is just the beginning of 8 races.
Yeah, it's just the beginning of 8 races. You see that Scotty's in the men's race is trying to exert his dominance, but the chasers are feisty today. They're not letting him just walk away with it. Nope. It looks like they've made a concerted effort to stay with him. Now the group is shrinking, as it has in the women's race, and so we see the war of attrition going on here as well, and we'll bounce back and forth between the 2 races. We're monitoring them here at CVR World Cup Studios, and we'll move to the exciting points in each of the races as they happen. But you do see him working hard, and you see someone here just climbing on Mohian from Iowa. It looks like just getting back on. So as the group, sometimes as the catch happens, the group will slow, and if you just sort of maintain your distance, you have that opportunity to get back in. Now that usually doesn't bode well for you towards the end of the day, because usually you're at your limit, and the other guys will leave you a little bit later on. So they don't tend to worry about you too much in that particular group, but they'll try and get you on the attrition the next time. Now, interestingly here, Scotty did not wait to the hill to attack this time. He attacked earlier, and now everybody's calm on the hill. I thought he would have had a little bit more of an advantage being a light rider, maybe attacking on the hill. That being said, I think he was trying to get the element of surprise, because usually Zwift terrain dictates efforts, so if there's a little uphill, you get the resistance in the trainer, it makes it a little bit easier to go hard, you go harder, everybody's heart rates go up, and then it flattens out and everybody sort of calms down, and that becomes such a repeating pattern that riders get used to it. And so I think this time he was trying to catch them off guard. I think he did a little bit, but what we see here is, although it's not a team in the true sense of the word, because they're not all wearing the same jerseys and they're not truly on the same team, everybody who's in this group except Scotty has formed a team to just try and stay with Scotty.
That's right.
So I think it's going to be exciting.
Don't get dropped by Scotty team.
Absolutely. And then Scotty can also sprint. Thus, it's kind of where the rainbow stripes come from. You know, you're super strong and can sprint and can climb, and that's a well-rounded rider. But some of these other guys are going to be doing less work and may have a sprint in them as well. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out this race, and if it makes it to a sprint finish, that'll be interesting. Usually Scotty tries to make the brakes stick.
It does. Well, he does. Right now, live season points, Warren Muir, if he were to cross the line right now, we'd have 1,000 points. Scotty would have 998 points. Only 2 points different, right? Wow, that's pretty dang close. But this is an 8-week season. 6 races count. The winner of each zone in the A group advanced to the live finals, which is this time in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. It was just in Los Angeles. Before that, it was in Paris. Before that, it was in London. Before that, it was in Las Vegas. And before that, it was in Richmond, Virginia. Sorry, not Richmond, Raleigh, North Carolina. I knew it started with an R. But you can look those up. You can find out more details, of course, at Cycle Data. We see questions in all the chats. How do I find out more about this? It's CVR World Cup, CVRWorldCup.com, and CycleView.CVRWorldCup.com is how you can get the details on who is racing right now. You can actually see many of their camera angles because they are broadcasting and streaming directly to this platform. So we see the women's race here. It is getting a little bit, I guess, more tenuous for them as they come around this last time on the outside of the volcano, the caldera here. We're already outside. We're about to extend straight forward up to Sprint Town here in just a little bit. We'll pass the fountain, and then they'll be kind of in that final stretch, start measuring up. Now, as we look at their distance, they're getting close. There's just about, let me take a quick peek here, 5.4 miles left for these women in this women's race. But the men's race, much, much closer to the end. They are really kicking it into high gear. Ryan Corliss also in that group. Shane Gaffney did get eliminated from that group. He's not in the main group. And Corliss actually, I think, oh no, he's sitting on the front there. My goodness. These guys are much closer to the finish. 5 kilometers left for our guy. 4.9 now, in fact, and you can check out his angle and the angle of the other riders on there. All right. Zakharov in this group did very well in the last season. Scotty Weiss also very well in the last season. Neil Reagan chasing like he knows how to do. In the end, it was too much. When Scotty attacked over the top, he just ejected. Was there anyone in that group that actually stayed on? I don't think so. I think that the 2 riders who were the closest were Reagan and Hogan, and they just got jettisoned. Not the way you want to go. Scotty hit the eject button and they were off the back. Nothing they could do. Back here in the women's race, McKenzie and Laflamme also about a minute behind of this lead group. And that's about what it's been since the very beginning. If they could have hung on, I think they could have hung on. But something crazy happened early. We'll find out what that was. Excited to see what it was, in fact. We'll find out if, in fact, there's something that could have been done. My guess, maybe not. If you attack at the right time, you attack with enough pressure. Now, as we get closer to the finish here, the men are about to come out of the area here on top of the of the marina and such, and they're going to come back underneath the ocean again. This will be the last time through the ocean tube here. Zakharov, Corliss, Moan. We've got, of course, Scotty Weiss in that group. Muir, Big E, that's Ericsson. Eric Sorensen. And that's it. That's it. Zakharov, just off the front here, decides to put in a little bit, and Scotty just kind of lets him go. Sits in easy position here. Now we're back with the other Weiss. And she is trying to hang on to this group right here. They put in a little bit of a kick, and Kubota is off the back now. Stickle trying to make sure that she stays away, or at least make them do a little bit harder work. That's Stephanie Ossenbrink right there, holding about 4.5 to 5 watts per kilo. That's pretty hard. You're going to see heart rates really go up here. Do they have enough energy to sustain it? And then another big attack in the men's group right here. Scotty trying to make sure he catches onto that group. Who was it? It looks like Sorensen. Man, he put in a great attack in Los Angeles. If you have not seen these live events, you need to go back. You can find it on the Facebook as well. I believe it's in the VODs of this mixer even. Very, very cool event. But he did exactly the same type of thing. They got close to the finish, and he decided to attack. It looks like Kubota has been trimmed. Rhonda Stickle moving away from this. Stephanie Ossenbrink trying to catch her. This is one of the slight sections of up and down here, Frank, that really allows them to break off. But I did not expect to see Kubota off the back of this group. What in the world happened? You've got all the monitors there at headquarters in front of you.
They just did an attack, but she's working her way back. So I think with Ellison, she's got the big diesel engine. She can go very strong for a long time, but those sharp efforts can catch her out. And so now I would say she's looking to hold off Katrina for third, stay with this group. But it looks like it's going to be a sprint for Ossenbrink or Stickle. I would imagine they'll go very sharp effort towards the end. We're going to switch back to the men now.
Yes, we are. Animation. That's right. My goodness, Scotty Weiss, more animation than a Disney movie. This guy knows how to do it, and we're coming up. Here is the big push, the final one. Moen decides he wants to dictate a little bit. Muir as well. Scotty responds a little bit later, but I don't think he's in trouble. Zakharov makes a move, but it's Scotty who's going to have to close the gap. Moen is the one off the front. Zakharov on Weiss's wheel. Muir trailing behind. These guys are going to really string out. 1 second is too far behind. Scotty is going to be able to catch Moen right here. Is he going to come around him? This is so early to try to solo to the line. Scotty backs off, drifts by. I think he's looking for a sprint finish or at least a high power. He missed the opportunity to slingshot around, backs it off a little bit. You see his power drop down quite a bit. He's letting other people kind of have their moment. Sorensen drifts to the front of this, but he is not making an effort. There a little bit of a recovery by Muir, at least trying to get on that wheel. They're trying to get on everybody's wheel at this point. In the moment, it's going to flatten out above by this T, and they're going to come around to the corner for the big final sprint. This is going to dictate your winner here. Week 1, Zone G, second season CVR World Cup coming down right now. The Riddle still hanging on to this group. Hogan's still hanging on to this group. Neil Reagan? What is going on here? How did that guy get back in the group? Did he have some kind of teleport pass? Not sure, but he was 40 seconds off the back at one point, looking like he was heading the wrong direction. It still looks like he's heading the wrong direction. Okay. Here's the big move. Muir on the front trying to get away. Scotty is going to mark him. Scotty's the guy who can mark him, but Muir from Canada is pulling away. He got the jump at the perfect time. Can Scotty close the distance there? He's got to do much, much more with very little space left. He's got just a tiny bit of runway. Is he going to catch him and catch air? It looks like he's going to. He's not going to crash into the end of the runway. He's going to come by him at the last possible second. Muir's going to take second place. Looks like Corliss in fourth. Biggie just behind him. We'll look at the final standings here in just a moment. The rest of the world populates. A couple of these other guys come across not of note here. Back to the women's race, and we'll report on what happened with the men in just a second. You can look at these unofficial details right now on CycleView. You do not have to wait for Christmas morning to view your presents. Now, as we mentioned before, it might have been just a little bit too much, but Weiss in the women's group off the back, Weiss rather, in the gap there. She can close this, but she doesn't look like she's putting out the power to do it. She's still almost a minute behind Stang, who is behind, not going to catch. It's between these three women. You mentioned Rhonda Stickle as a likely winner of this sprint. Is it possible it's her over Allison Kubota?
I think it is. Now we'll see. Ellison, as writers tend to do, once I've called their name, they seem to like to prove me wrong. But I say this is between Stickle and Ossenbrink. And I don't know who I'm feeling just at the moment. I think I'm feeling Stickle. But it's going to be a very, very close sprint, I think, here at the end between those two.
Yeah, you seem to be in a very Stickle mood today, and that's okay. But you know what? You could be right. She put out some great power early, closed a gap. She's sitting on the front here. Maybe not the wisest thing, unless she's going to set a pace that's difficult for the others to hang on to, unless she's got more fuel in the tank and is unable to do that. Now, as we kind of bounce around to the other group, we see some of these other folks in the C group just kind of in their spot in the course. You can check those out on the site as well to find out where everybody is. All right. Rhonda Stickle still driving this train. That's Allison Kubota's spot. I don't know if you know that. She's kind of particular about her spot, likes to be on the front. The safety of this women's group, certainly remarkable, making sure that they're wearing helmets. The men don't always do that. The women don't always do that either, but I find it interesting when someone chooses to wear a helmet. Very little impact in the game, but it'd be interesting if you actually programmed those helmets to do something specific and unique. Maybe it, I don't know. We can throw that out there to encourage, helmets to be worn. All right. Anyway, it does not matter in the course of this. So you think Ossenbrink, Stickle, Kubota coming to the end here. What are the conditions by which Allison takes this? What does she have that these other riders may not?
I think she need to go long. And I think it's going to be very hard for her at this point to hold that long, because these riders are going to be able to hold her wheel. So I think for her, she needed to go probably, maybe she could do it now because there's that climb, but she'd have to do it and hold power the entire time to the finish.
Yeah, she would. But that is her strength. But she'd have to get some kind of gap and make them work a little bit harder. She can't leave them alone in the wind. Rhonda with a little bit of a push off the front, maybe just testing to see who's willing to go, who wants it the most. This is nice data to have, because if you find a follower, right, you can identify somebody who's looking for that opportunity. You can maybe exploit it if they're not paying close attention. One of my favorite things to do is ask a rider that I'm riding with a question, right? A really detailed question, like what were the names of the different people you dated in high school, right? And what'll end up happening is they'll be thinking about that question. They'll be starting to answer, and I will sprint around them. Okay, no big sprint at this point. Kubota on the front again, where she's very comfortable doing about 6.5 watts per kilo. That's a big push. 170 beats per minute for Rhonda Stickle, trying to just keep in contact. Little gap forming, maybe concerning, maybe not. Somebody's going to have to close that. Looks like it's going to be Rhonda, Team Vixen rider there in that reddish jersey. Ossenbrink comes around. But again, nobody wants the front. They want to give that back to Allison. Maybe don't take the front until you absolutely want it. But Allison really backs off, lets her drift around. And now we kind of play that game where it's no, after you. No, after you. Right? Until finally someone slams
Allison
the
has
door.
An opportunity here. Other two are at a much higher heart rate. If she had it, I think she could have gone there and put these guys into a spot of bother. In terms of being able to hold up for the sprint. Now, maybe their maxes are a little bit higher and they've got room to play, but you've got Ossenbrink at 178, you've got Stickle at 175, and Ellison's down at 157, running the diesel engine. The others are on the premium octane, high octane engines. And so it'll be interesting here to see, but I think she's got to put them into a spot of bother while they're at a high heart rate. Now, what may be happening for these sprinters is the adrenaline's kicked in already, and their heart rates are spiking just in anticipation.
Yep. Yeah, they know what's coming, and just the awareness of a sprint will elevate your heart rate. All right. This is the big finish. They are just they're inside of a kilometer to this final line here. and somebody is going to move first. Who it's going to be? Might be Rhonda Stickle. She started to ramp it up just a little bit. She is in the red jersey. In the blue jersey, Stephanie Ossenbrink. In the white and black jersey, that is Allison Kubota. She was just a finalist in the CVR World Cup LA, the live event that we called 10 days ago. And it's Stickle who decides to kick Ossenbrink, actually coming around the front there. That's a big kick, but Allison tries to respond, coming around her, but no, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Kubota is going to chase here. Couldn't she come around? Maybe. Oh my goodness. We're going to have to check out the replay. Great angle to see how close they were in the grand scheme of things. Was it a wheel, or did Rhonda maybe, no, it wasn't Rhonda, excuse me, Stephanie actually hang on to that little bit of a lead? That was a savvy little kick there.
Absolutely great sprint. In terms of catching the draft, the timing maybe cut a little too close. We'll check the live results here and see who crossed the line in first place.
I'm looking at them right now. Spoiler alert, I know, and they don't. But actually, they can. If they're at cycleview.cvrworldcup.com, they can actually check that out themselves. While we wait for semi-official results, let me tell you who is in the men's top 10 here. As another big group come across. White in that group, not Barry White. Mackenzie coming in, across in that group. You're starting to see many of these riders coalescing, if you will, across the finish line. Very, very tired. All right. Your winner for the men's A bracket, Scotty Weiss. Right in second there, we knew it because we saw him come across, Warren Muir. In third place, Eric Sorensen. In fourth, Ryan Corliss. In fifth, Alexei Zakharov. Yep. So Brian Taipen, Patrick Hogan in sixth and seventh in that order. Carl Frechette. Ninth, you have Dan Riddle. And in 10th, Neil Reagan somehow redeemed himself. So you're telling me there's a chance. Sorry, when I think of my buddy Neil, I think of Dumb and Dumber. Nothing he's done. Just unrelated. Okay. So thank you very much. So you guys want to know on Mixer who won, and we can actually give you that information. Let's take a quick peek. I know who it was. Interesting to see. No, Flex, this is not ESPN, but thank you for pointing that out. Stephanie Ossenbrink took the win away from Allison Kubota. Now, Rhonda Stickle finished in that third position. But as you look at the live session points, here's what you find. Stephanie Ossenbrink, 1,000 points. Allison Kubota, 1,003 points. Rhonda Stickle, 996. What? How does this work, Frank? I know why, but I'm hoping you'll tell the friends.
I was typing in Mixer, so I wasn't really listening.
So we've got Allison Kubota, who's actually in the points lead for the season, even though she came in second. How in the world did she do that?
Streaming, and you get extra points for streaming. It's one of the things that CVR promotes as we launch the esports, physical esports, in this case, cycling race series. We want to be able to see not only the avatars, but we want to be able to see the actual physical effort that people are making. And so we encourage that through providing points for streaming.
Yep, it is pretty dang cool. And that is the fun part of this, right? Is that folks are able to see these riders and see the actual efforts that they're putting out, see what their pain cave looks like. It is physical esports. As somebody mentioned 10 days ago in LA, this is the hardest video game ever. And it is. It's a video game. It's esport. It is also a physical sport. Real bikes, real sweat, real effort and power, virtual world. So lots of great communication in the chat here. Hey, if you're here, we're going to have lots of great women's races, lots of great men's races throughout the season, and they're going to broadcast here. So give it a like, a follow on Mixer so that you're notified when these races go live. Really every Tuesday, depending on what part of the world you're in. It might already be Wednesday, but definitely something to continue to check out. this broadcast is gonna undergo some changes that you're gonna want to be a part of, things that you're gonna be able to get access to and see that may not be what you expect. So we'll kind of hold you in there. And this 8-week season is going to build to a playoffs and a live event, or postseason rather, and a live event in Vancouver, British Columbia. Do we have an exact date for that? Or are you ready to share that with the world? Yeah, you're filling in the details for folks on Mixer. I appreciate that.
Distracted. It's my cold. I'm pleading the. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. How's that?
Oh, okay, all right. Well, Fats, yes, we're still here. We haven't gone anywhere. The date, we'll bring it up next time. But the date for the live event in Vancouver,
June 24th and 25th.
Love it. That's a great time to be in Vancouver, British Columbia. Okay, well, let's wrap it up for today. This is our time to go, but we want to thank the folks who made this possible. Saris, who provides Cyclops, provides Power Tap. Those are Smart Trainer in Cyclops and Power Tap in pedals. We've also got Garneau, who provides some wicked sweet jerseys. So thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Again, Frank, thanks. This was awesome.
Thanks, Chris.